Chapter 15 3:15 a.m. His mother reached out and switched on the light. What kind of pain, Billy? He stood beside the bed, clutching his stomach. In my stomach? Oh, there it goes again, I think. Did you eat something before bed? She was pulling on her bathrobe. John, John. She shook her husband's shoulder. He mumbled sleepily. Did you eat candy or something before bed, Billy? Worms, groaned Billy. Worms? John, John. Billy, what kind of worms? Regular worms, night crawlers. She felt his forehead, lifted his chin to look in his face. You don't have a temperature. How many worms did you eat? 5. 2 boiled and 3 fried, with the ketchup, mustard, horseradish, salt, pepper, butter, to make them taste better. Fried ketchup tastes better? John, wake up! I had this bad with Alan. Ah, he groaned again. Take your hands away. Where does it hurt now? Show me. It doesn't really hurt so much now. It's just rumbling and gurgling, something awful. Then why are you groaning? Asked his father, sitting up. Because I'm afraid it's going to start hurting. Do you think I'm going to die, Daddy? Worms? His father asked. Ordinary worms? Earthworms? Billy nodded. And how many did you eat this evening? 1 this afternoon. I've eaten 1 every day for the last 5 days. But they weren't little ones. They were night crawlers, huge ones, as big as snakes almost. His father lay back down, pulling the covers up around his shoulders. Don't worry, eating 1 night crawler a day for 6 weeks wouldn't hurt you. Go back to bed. It's probably all the ketchup and mustard that's upsetting your stomach. Drink a glass of warm water. John, are you sure? Said Billy's mother. It doesn't seem to me that worms could be a very healthy thing to eat, John. His father snuggled deeper under the covers. I didn't say eating worms would turn him into an all-American fullback. I just said they wouldn't hurt him. Now let's go to sleep. Billy's mother glanced at Billy, shivering beside the bed in her bare feet and pajamas, and then shook her husband again. John, John, wake up. I think you should call Dr. McGrath. You don't really know whether or not eating worms is harmful. I know you don't. Billy's father groaned and sat up. Now look, I'm not going to call Dr. McGrath at 3:30 in the morning to ask if it's all right for my son to eat worms. That's flat. Secondly, I do know that Billy's not going to die before morning. If worms were poisonous, which they're not, he would have been laid up before this. Billy, you've been eating worms for 5 days? Billy nodded. All right. And thirdly, I ate live crayfish when I was in college and have suffered no discernible effects. And fourthly, I'm going to sleep. Billy's mother slipped her feet into her slippers, stood up and buttoned her bathrobe, and then leaned over the bed and shook her husband's shoulder. John, John, I won't be able to sleep until you call. John, John, what about tapeworms or the fungus? John, wake up. Billy, you go back to bed. Your father will call Dr. McGrath. John, John. Billy laid in bed listening to his mother and father arguing in their bedroom. He could only make out a word here and there, usually when his father started to shout, only to be shushed immediately by his mother. Billy got sleepier and sleepier. His stomach had stopped rumbling and gurgling. It was warm and cozy under the covers after standing on the cold floor in his bare feet. Then, in the midst of a foggy drowse, he heard someone dialing the phone in the hall outside his parents' bathroom, and then his father say, Poison control? And explain the case. Then there was a silence. Billy heard the water running in the bathroom. And then his father said, You're sure these weren't little ones? These were night crawlers. Pause. And no long-range ill effect? Pause. His father laughed. A bat, I think. And the next thing, Billy knew sunlight was streaming through his window, and Emily was skipping down the hall past his door singing, Half a pound of a tuppenny rice, half a pound of a treacle. That's the way the money goes. His father shouted down the stairs, Helen, do you know where my green tie with the red stripes is? Chapter 16. The Sixth Worm. Billy gurgled triumphantly, serene, untroubled. By the door, Alan glowered, his mind racing. He's gonna do it. He'll win. What'll I do? $50. Joe sat on an overturned pail, whistling, gazing carelessly about, sneaking a glance now and then at Billy. What had gone wrong? Why hadn't he cracked? Outside, Tom lurked sheepishly in the bushes behind the stone wall, peering at the barn. Chapter 17. The Seventh Worm. Billy ate it offhand, sideways, reading a comic book. Alan and Joe squatted glumly in the barn door, watching him. As Billy was stuffing horseradish sauce on the last bite, Tom's head appeared in the corner of the grimy window. He waved tentatively at Billy. Ignoring him, Billy gulped down the last bite, wiped his mouth, and tucking his comic book under his arm, strolled airily out of the barn, remarking over his shoulder, "See you tomorrow, fellows." Chapter 18. The Eighth Worm. "Where's Joe?" asked Billy, spreading mustard down the length of the fried worm. "He wouldn't come," said Alan sullenly. "It's no fair putting on that much mustard." "Ha ha," said Billy. "Who says? I can put on as much as I like of whatever I like, and you know it. Why wouldn't he come?" "How should I know?" Billy swished a bit of worm around in ketchup and horseradish sauce. "I know why he didn't." "Yeah, you're so smart. Big deal." Alan couldn't get the $50 out of his head. What was his father going to say when he told him he'd bet $50 and lost? Geez, he gnawed at his thumbnail. "He wouldn't come because he knows I've won. He knows I could eat 20 worms if I had to." Yeah? Well, you ain't won yet. There's still 7 to go. You act so big. Wait till you begin to feel it in your stomach. You think you know everything? Yeah, you'll see. You wait." "Ha ha," said Billy. "You think you can scare me talking like that? Phooey." He strolled past Alan out into the sunlight. "Hi," said Tom, popping up from behind the barrel. "Pfft," said Billy disdainfully and walked on. Chapter 19. The Ninth Worm. "That's not a worm," yelled Billy. "How can it be a worm? Geez, it must be 2 feet long." "It's a worm," said Alan stubbornly. "It's just like all the others. I rolled it in cornmeal and fried it." "It's over 2 feet long," screeched Billy. He knew something was up. Otherwise, Joe wouldn't have come back, slouching in the doorway, pretending to be gazing up at the clouds. But Billy noticed he kept glancing at Alan and him. And Tom was peering in the window again. Something was up. "Look," said Alan. "I'll cut it. You can see for yourself it's a worm. There, see? Come on, eat up. We ain't got all day. Joe and me have to go to the station with his father." Billy poked at the huge worm with his fork. Something sure was up. He ate the piece Alan had cut, looking the rest of the worm over carefully as he chewed. He ate another bite. Phew! He'd forgotten to dip it in the horseradish sauce. Come on, said Alan. "Yeah," said Joe. "Eat up, Billy. We gotta go." "I'll never be able to eat the whole thing," thought Billy. "It'd choke me. It's too much yuck at once." "Half," he croaked. "I would half. This is some sort of a ringer. There's never been a worm this long." "Okay," said Alan. "Then the bet's off. Suit yourself. Come on, Joe." He chickened out. "Let's go." All right, said Billy, playing for time. "The whole thing." "You make yourself sick," said Alan. "He's too anxious," thought Billy. "What's going on?" "Leave him alone," said Joe. "Let him eat it. It's his stomach." He's trying to cover for Alan, thought Billy. He ate another bite. Then he began to scrape the cornmeal carefully off the worm with his knife. "What are you doing?" said Alan. "I think I'll have it plain today. No cornmeal." "That's not fair. You can't." "Glue!" screamed Billy all of a sudden. "Glue! You glued the two crawlers together. Geez, you bunch of loud cheats. Tom, look what they try to pull. Glue!" Panting, Tom bent over the plate. "You're right, geez." Alan kicked the pail, clattering against the wall. I told you it wouldn't work, he screamed at Joe. All right, so it didn't work. You couldn't think of anything better. That's cheating, said Billy. I ought to win right now. You cheated. 15 worms in 15 days, yelled Joe. You ain't won yet. But you cheated, shouted Tom. So what? They argued and yelled, striding here and there about the barn, sprawling against posts, flinging up their arms, kicking walls, banging down on a pail or orange crate, and squeezing their heads between their hands. It doesn't make any difference, Joe yelled at Billy. It didn't work. You didn't fall for it. If you'd eaten the whole thing and then found out it was 2 worms glued together, then you could have claimed to win because Alan was cheating. Big mouth, shouted Alan from the horse stall, where he was kicking the sleds in. Who thought it up? Not me. Who cares who thought it up? Shouted Tom. It's still cheating. A pig looking at the door and then wandered away. Joe ran out and stuck his head under the faucet by the kitchen steps. A minute later he came running back dripping, yelling, That's not true. What's not true? Said Billy, turning around from shouting at Alan. Whatever you said. What'd I say? It doesn't make any difference. You're a liar and a cheat, and so anything you say isn't true. You're crazy. Even Hitler or Jack the Ripper sometimes said things that were true. It's impossible to lie all the time. Behind them, Tom lay down on his back and said, Ah! Alan and Joe and Billy turned to look at him. What's the matter with you? Arr! 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 Silence. A bird flew in and then out through a broken window in the loft. Well, said Billy, yeah, I see what you mean. He and Alan and Joe sat down on the overturned orange crates. After a while, Joe said, Anyway, I was right. If Billy's eaten it, it would have been cheating. But he didn't, so it's not. The bet's still on. The pig looked in at the door again. A pig's loose, said Alan. Look. Where? Said Billy. Oh boy, come on, we gotta catch it. He jumped up. The pig bolted. Hooey! Yelled Billy, dashing out. Tom and Joe and Alan scrambled after him. Chapter 20. Billy's Mother. Billy slumped at the kitchen table on one elbow, pouring in his bowl of Wheaties with his spoon. His mother was washing the breakfast dishes at the sink. But why isn't it good to eat hot dogs for breakfast? I know nobody does, but why don't they? Oh, Billy, said his mother. Stop it, finish your cereal. Well, but... A knock on the screen door. Billy's mother glanced around. Oh, hello, Alan Joe. Is your sister better, Joe? Yes, thank you. Billy can't come out until he's finished his breakfast. Would you like to wait for him on the front porch? We came to see you, Mrs. Forrester. Oh, come in. Mrs. Forrester, said Joe, as Alan shut the door carefully behind them. I don't know if you know about it already, but see, about a week ago, Alan made this bet with Billy about eating worms. If Billy could eat 15 worms, one each day for 15 days, then... Billy, you're not still eating them. Billy stuffed a spoonful of Wheaties into his mouth. Not just worms, Mom. I've been eating lots of other stuff too. Look at me. I'm healthy. Dr. McGrath told you the worms wouldn't hurt me. But Billy, Dr. McGrath didn't think you were going to keep on eating worms. Joe nudged Alan and grinned. Oh, Mom, if 5 worms wouldn't hurt me, a few more won't either. They're little worms. Besides, it's a bet. They're big worms, Mrs. Forrester, said Joe, looking virtuous. We won't lie to you. My mother told me never to tell a lie. Man, you are, said Billy. Mom, it's a bet. I told you if I win, Alan's got to pay me $50. $50? Young man, don't you move from that chair. She went off into the front hall. Thanks, whispered Billy, but you will see it won't work. Alan and Joe gazed enchantedly at the ceiling. Billy's mother's voice came from the front hall. Dr. McGrath, I'm awfully sorry to bother you again. It's such a ridiculous matter, but since I spoke to you, Billy has continued to eat worms. Pause. No, it's nothing like that. He's acting perfectly normal otherwise. It seems he's made a bet with some other boys. Pause. One every day. He has to 15 to win his bet. Pause. Oh, thank you, Dr. McGrath. I'm sorry to bother. She returned to the kitchen, but no more bets after this one, Billy. Alan and Joe, don't you egg him on any more? He's far too eager to do wilder things. Billy yelped silently at Joe and Alan. Alan made a rude gesture at him. Mrs. Forrester, said Joe, what we really came about is that Alan and me are going up to Lake Lauderdale today with my father to fish, and we won't be back till tomorrow night. So we wondered if you'd make sure Billy eats the worms today and tomorrow. It's not that we don't trust Billy, Mrs. Forrester. No, said Billy's mother, smiling. But it's always better if there's a referee. You know, like Mr. Simmons says at school, to save arguments and hard feelings, we brought the 2 worms. He held up a paper bag. We boiled them already, so you can just keep them in the refrigerator. Well, said Billy's mother, this is quite a responsibility. Are you sure I'll be neutral enough? I am his mother. Yeah, we thought of that, said Joe, but we figured, well, you're usually pretty fair, and besides, parents almost never cheat kids. If it's just something between kids, they're usually pretty fair until they get into it. Billy's mother laughed. And how does it eat them? Just cold boiled? Well, we've been frying them, Mrs. Forrester. We roll them in cornmeal and then fry them like a fish, but he can do whatever he wants. Except that Alan and me have decided it's not fair to make soup out of them or chop them all up like hash or a chicken salad sandwich. He's got to eat them piece by piece. Who said? Yelled Billy. When was that ever in the rules? We said, shouted Alan. Billy jumped up, kicking the chair over. Well, then I win, because it's cheating to make up new rules in the middle. Oh, yeah? Shouted Alan. Then you lose, because anybody knows it'd be cheating to hash it up. You think you're going to whistle out of it after I've already eaten 9. Who's whistling? You're cheating. Yeah? Yeah. Boys, Billy, Alan. Silence. Please, now, Billy, I think... No, let me speak first. I do think Alan and Joe are right. It wouldn't be fair to cut the work all up. You can just think of some other way of fixing it. Thank you, Joe. She took the paper back and looked inside. Phew, Billy, are you sure? Mom, you've eaten eels. You ate eels last summer in Long Island. These are just smaller. They're the same thing. Well, she put the paper back in the refrigerator. I guess if Dr. McGrath says it's all right, now why don't you all go outside? I wouldn't go across the street with those things, said Billy. They can. Yeah, shouted Alan. Well, who'd want to go anywhere with you either? Yeah, shouted Billy. Boys, cried Mrs. Forrester. Stop it, all right. Alan and Joe, you had better go. The screen door banged behind them. Said Billy scornfully. Joe's face appeared at the screen. Thanks for saying you will help out, Mrs. Forrester. Chapter 21. The 10th Worm. What's for dinner? Said Billy's father, coming into the kitchen. Well, said Billy's mother, you and I and Emily are having hamburgers and string beans and mashed potatoes. Billy's having a fried worm. More worms. The bet's still on? Look, she took a small plate covered with a saran wrap out of the refrigerator. And you've eaten 9 of these already, Billy? He poked the worms curiously. What do? Use a lot of ketchup and mustard? Billy nodded. And horseradish and other things. And we fried them. Billy's father lifted a corner of the saran wrap and smelled the worms. Helen, you ought to be able to do better than fried. Use your cookbooks. I'm not the cook. I'm just the referee. Oh, come on, think of the challenge. He took a cookbook from the shelf under the spice rack. Let's see, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. He lived through the cookbook. Here, how about poached eels on toast? No, said Billy's mother. It calls for chopping up the eel in little pieces, and that would be against the rules. How about spaghetti with wormwurst then? Or a savory worm pie? Creamed worms on toast? Spanish worm? Worm loaf with a mushroom sauce? Wait, said Billy's mother, putting down her cooking spoon. It might just. She took the cookbook and turned to the index. Here, she read. Alsatian smothered worm. Dredge the worm with a seasoned flour. Sauté in 3 tablespoons drippings until browned. Cover with sliced onions. Pour over the 1 cup thick sour cream. Cover pot closely and bake in a slow oven until tender. Bravo, said Billy's father. Put the hamburgers back in the refrigerator. We'll all have worm tonight. I won't, said Emily. Huh, said Billy, grinning in the midst of chewing. Boy, Alan and Joe thought they were doing me in when they came to you, Mom, but this is better than steak. It really tastes good. Yug, muttered Emily, making a face. Let me have a taste, said Billy's father. No, no, said his mother. Billy has to eat every bit himself. Alan and Joe were very firm about that, and I'm the referee. Boy, said Billy, I don't mind if it tastes like this. Chapter 22. The 11th Worm. How do you do it? Said Billy. What's it called? My word, said his father. Gosh, Mrs. Forrester, gasped Tom. On a silver dish in front of Billy lay an ice cream cake bathed in fruit syrups, peach, cherry, tutti frutti, candied orange, topped with a whipped cream, sprinkled with jelly beans and almond slivers. It's called the Whiz-Bang Worm Delight, said Billy's mother proudly. I made it up. Is the worm really in there? Said Billy, poking about with his spoon, and then scraping away a bit of whipped cream at one end. He glimpsed the worm's snout protruding from the center of the cake. Snug as a bug in a rug, said his mother. I still wouldn't eat a worm, said Emily, eyeing the Whiz-Bang Worm Delight with envious distaste. I would, said Tom, at least maybe Chapter 23. Admirals Nagumo and Kusaka on the bridge of the Kaiga, December 6, 1941. It won't work. Look, said Joe. Even if he remembers the worm while we're at Shea, he can't get one. Where is anyone going to find a worm at Shea Stadium? Don't worry, we'll say you've won. We'll find a worm after we get home, and we keep right on stuffing him. Peanuts, hot dogs, hamburgers, Cracker Jack, ice cream, orange soda, gum, Mars bars. You know how he loves to eat. You ever seen him refuse something to eat? By the time we start home, he'll be bloated, drowsy, bouncing. Remember the last time? When his father took us. He was asleep by the time we hit Peekskill. Your father will carry him in from the car. His mother and father will put him to bed. Next morning he'll wake up. Too late! You've won. 15 worms in 15 days. He missed a day. Alan nodded at his thumbnail. What about Tom? We'll ask him along and then just not pick him up. We can tell your father and Billy that Tom's mother called. He was sick. His grandmother died, anything, just so we don't have to bring him with us. Alan sighed. Geez, it'll probably cost me $8 just to buy all the food. Cracker Jack, hamburgers. Yeah, but it'll cost you $50 if he wins. Yeah, well, oh geez, how'd I ever get into this? If my father finds out. Alan slumped on the porch steps, gazing down at his sneakers, gnawing his thumbnail. Come on, said Joe, slapping him on the shoulder. Cheer up, you haven't lost yet. Go ask your father.